The lighter side of pest control. This is Tales from the Crawl Space podcast with Jack, Nick, and Dave.
Hello and welcome to the Tales from the Crawl Space podcast. Today hosting is me, Nick, joined by, I was going to say by Dave, but Dave is MIA at the minute. Don't know really where he's at. Maybe Thanos snapped him out. I don't know. But I do have Jack with me today. How are you doing today, Jack?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad. I got a PBR right in front of me, so I can't complain.
Oh, nice. No drunk texting and drunk podcasting. You know what they say about that.
Oh, no, just a little buzz. They'll be fine.
No problem.
All right. So if this is your first time joining us, this is the Tales from the Crawl Space podcast, where we kind of talk about the funny things we see as pest control technicians, the morbid things, as you're going to see on today's episode. And it's just joined by us host. And then we do like you listeners to send in suggestions. So you can do that by the Tales from the Crawl Space at Gmail email. We are still working on everything. So this is our second episode, still work in progress. If you have any suggestions to us, go ahead and let us know. And also join us on the Facebook page, same name. Anything else?
The web address for that is facebook.com / Tales from the Crawl Space is the Facebook page. And like you said, we have the Gmail address. We do have a website that's under construction right now, but as soon as it's up and going, we'll let everybody know. We would love to hear stories, ideas, critiques, everything from, what you think you want to hear to weird stuff that's happened to you. A little bit of everything would be great. We enjoy reading them, and it'd be fun. And it makes for this is basically shop talk on a podcast. Wouldn't you agree, Nick?
I would agree, and that's everybody's favorite time of the day. I mean, I'm riding around in my truck all the time. I got my two coworkers I'm always calling just to do the shop talk, because what else are we going to do? We all enjoy it as technicians. Oh, yeah.
Definitely sitting out in the parking lot with your truck, warming up, a cup of coffee, and just talking about all the crap that's happened the past few days. And, yeah, it's awesome. That is my favorite time of the day. It kind of gets me in the right headspace for work.
Oh, yeah. All right. So today we're going to go ahead and start out with a morbid story. That's what this theme of this episode is, kind of the morbid, creepy stuff you see as a technician. We've all kind of seen it. If you haven't seen it, you're going to.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead, start out with my story. Then Jack's going to tell a story. And then we do have a user-submitted story from Reddit. So
nice.
If you are on Reddit, you can go to the Pest Control Reddit page. You can see my post there. I will go ahead and you might actually see this tag post here, because I will post every week. Every week we upload an episode. But anyways, so I've been a pest control technician for about, I would say, 11 months now. And on my second week by myself, I rolled up to an apartment we did every week. I did about 2 buildings there every week. Got the keys, all of that. I'm going through it. Kind of a cold, nasty day that day. Going for everything. Everything's fine. I'm like, okay, it's a good day. Cool. I get up to this door, see some Amazon packages outside of it. Some like, hey, we missed you things. Some of the stuff from the apartment complex's office. You see that tagged on the door.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, whatever, So, hello, pest control. No answer. Hello, pest control. Okay, nothing. So I knock, open up the door, scream out, hey, pest control, coming in. And I'll walk into this unit. Trash everywhere. It's nasty.
Ugh.
And I get hit with a smell of like cat shit and
ammonia, that thick ammonia smell.
Yeah, and like lighter fluid and kind of like just a nasty, rotten smell. But like my first instinct was, this smells like cat litter. Like, because I have a cat, and like, when you go a couple weeks without cleaning out the litter box, or you've never been to someone's house, it stinks.
Ooh. Ugh.
And I'm walking this apartment, and you Jack, you walk in those apartments and you look around, you're like, how the hell am I going to spray anything in here?
Yeah. Oh no, it's so cluttered, and there's like roaches all over the place, and they're like, oh yeah, you got to get rid of them. I'm like, you got to like empty your apartment. I wish we could just like take the roof off the building, shake all the shit out of it, and set it back down so I could just treat. But no, I get it. It's just, there's nothing you can do. There's nowhere you can treat.
No, the better one they always give you is, oh yeah, I'm sorry, it's such a mess. I've been working on cleaning it. I'm like, no, you're not.
No, you're not.
Don't
No,
bullshit me. I don't care. I mean, I kind of do care because I want to get rid of your roaches, but don't bullshit me.
Yeah.
So
You ain't cleaning nothing.
yeah, no. So like, I'm walking in there, and what we kind of did with apartments at this apartment complex, we spray bathroom, kitchen, and go. Unless it's a callback, like unless they're actually having an issue, we kind of spray in those key areas just to make sure any roaches or anything going between the water pipes, take care of them.
Yeah.
So I look in the kitchen, and there's like shit all in the way in there. And then I look in the living room, and my heart drops, and I see this guy, probably 250 to 300 pounds, butt ass nude.
Ugh.
I mean, no clothes, bald, no nude is the way he came out of his mama. And he's on his belly. He's got his ass up, luckily not facing towards me. Thank God. I would be even more scarred. But he's got his like hands clasped in front of him. And if you've ever played like a video game like Red Dead 2, he kind of looks like the cook in that game.
Yeah.
He's got, like, bulky top head and like long hair in the back.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah. So he's like pale, but he's also, you can see at the bottom of him where he is on the floor like purple in his body.
Oh, lividity. Yeah. Ooh. I used to be an EMT, and I'm going to kind of bring that up here, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Ugh, nasty.
Yeah, so you see, like, I could kind of go, okay, it's probably been a while, but this is my first time seeing a body. I'm in, like, such total shock. Of course, my first thing I go is, sir, are you okay? And I'm like, so I'm like, oh. I go out the door. Nobody's around me, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh, we're gonna have to bleep this part out. I'm like, oh fuck, I found a dead body. I think that's a dead body. I'm not sure. So I go back in.
Ew.
Yeah. And I'm like, sir, of course I don't go up and touch him or take my nozzle, whatever, and kind of, take my BNG nozzle and poke him like, hello, or spray the roaches or maggots around him. I didn't do that.
Right.
That later.
Oh, what was there maggots?
I don't think so.
Oh God, that'd even be worse. Ugh.
This was back in March, and it was pretty cool in it, so I don't think his body was long enough.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope not, but I didn't see him. So I go back out, and I'm like, oh God. So instead of calling the police or anything like that, I call my boss.
Oh, well, yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I'm like, hey, boss man, I'm not going to say his name on here.
Right.
But hey, boss man, I think I found a fucking dead body. And I'm not joking with you. And he's like, he told me later, he's like, Nick doesn't know what he's talking about. He has no clue. But I'm like, I literally think I found a dead body. I don't know what to do. Should I call the police? What should I do? And he's like, no, don't call the police. Just go to the leasing office. Tell them what you think you saw. Because he was like, he did not find a dead body.
What you think you saw? Come on.
You didn't see that. So I go up to the office, and they're like, yeah, is everything good? And I'm like, is there any residents in there? They're like, no. And I'm like, I think I found a dead body. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, over an apartment, blah, blah, blah. I think I found a dead body.
Ugh.
And they're like, my face was like white, like I just seen a ghost, which of course I kind of had just seen a ghost.
Yeah.
But
the beginnings of one, at least.
The beginnings of a ghost, like his origin story being a ghost. So, they're like, okay, we have a police officer who lives on site. We'll go ahead and get him down there, because we as the office people, we can't go in there. We have to send someone else. So they're like, we'll go ahead, do that, and we'll call the police out here, blah blah blah, and we'll tell them to kind of come in quietly. So they go get me of the property manager, and I go sit in her office. Like, do you want a water? And I'm like, yeah. And so I'm sitting there drinking a water, and she's asking me about it. And she's like, well, he is in kind of bad health, so maybe blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden, I hear the fire truck, ambulance, cop car all come into the neighborhood.
Oh yeah, they weren't quiet either, were they?
All around. No, they did not, and they went all around the neighborhood because they couldn't figure out where he was at. And then suddenly the police officer comes in there, and he's like, "Hey, we need the keys." So they give him the keys. He goes back out there, and they come back a little bit later, and they're like, "Yeah, he is dead. We need you to go back over there and talk to a police officer." So I go back out there and talk to the officer a little bit, and he's like asking me kind of some questions, like, "Did you touch anything in there?" I'm like, "Nope, didn't do that. I'm smart enough not to do anything like that." Just kind of talking to him, and then after that, I call one of my supervisors, and he's like, "Yeah, I heard what happened." He's like, "Do you need to go home?" And at the time, my girlfriend was in class because this is back before COVID had really hit.
Right.
And I was like, no, I really don't want to go home alone right now. And I think I was just in such shock. I didn't know what to do. I was like, I guess I'll just keep working, which I told him after this. I was like, yeah, if I find another dead body, I'm probably taking like that day off and probably the next day
I would
off.
have been like, dude, I fucking told you. I told you it was a dead body. And you're like, what I think I saw. Kiss my ass.
Yeah. Ass, like, come on. So I wish they just kind of told me, just go home. But I was just like, oh, no, I'm going to keep working. I don't want to be home alone right now.
Well, you can't be judged by your actions for your first dead body. I mean, it's not like you went into a funeral home or nothing.
Yeah, no. So I mean, it's not my first dead body. Of course, I've been to funerals and seen them, but it's a lot different when you find the dead body and it's not all prettied up. It's like, but so I keep going around and I'm spraying. I have one lady who comes out of her apartment and she's like, "Oh, there's cops out there in the fire department." And I'm like, yep. And I didn't say anything, so I was like, I don't want to talk about this right now. So I get done with all my buildings. I'm walking back to my truck, and I see the coroner out there. I see a guy with a camera taking the pictures. And so I see him snapping pictures and all of that. And then I see like a cop that's on uniform, but you can see like his vest on him and his pistol strapped to his side. And he's talking to one of the officers. He points at me, asks him a question, and he sees me, waves me over. And he's like, "I'm an investigator, blah, 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 blah." And he's like, "I need to ask you a few questions." And I'm like, "Okay." And he takes out a tape recorder and starts recording our conversations. He's like, "Did you know this guy? Did he call you out there?" And I had to explain to him, "No, we have a deal with this apartment complex, and we come out here and do this for them, and blah, 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 blah," and all of that. And he's like, "Did you touch anything?" And I'm like, "No, blah, blah, blah." And he's just talking to me a little bit. And he's like, "This is your first time finding a dead body, isn't it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, the first one's kind of hard."
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I agree with that.
That first one was hard. And if you guys have ever found one, you'll know you can smell it. And I'm sure right now, Jack, talking about it, you can smell a dead body.
Oh yeah,
right?
Oh yeah. You can almost taste it, and that'll be part of my story because you can almost taste it.
Yeah, and that's something like any new technicians or anybody who might be a veteran who's never seen a dead body, you will end up tasting that, and you will never forget it.
No, you'll never forget it. You'll actually have like little phantom whiffs of it, like months down the road. It'll just like cross your nose. You'll go, "What?" It sticks with you.
And that's like one of the scariest things. You'll smell something that kind of smells like it, and you just go, "Oh God, not again."
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, "Oh shit, here we go again." Yeah. But yeah, after that, I was like, this is awful. Surprisingly, that night, I slept really good. Nights after that, I did not sleep good because I kept seeing them. I kept smelling them. I was like, oh my God. But then I got talking later to one of my bosses, and he was talking to his grandma, who is the owner of the company. And in the 30 years that our company's been around, I was the first one to ever find a dead body.
Wow.
So I kind of got that award.
Popped your corpse cherry.
Yeah, pop my corpse cherry, and I you know, I don't want that to be ever be touched again, but I'm sure it'll happen to me.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that was, yeah. I mean, that smell, you'll never forget that. And I could just imagine the lividity. I didn't get to see all that in mine because it get kind of more creepy the way I'm going to tell you. But no, that's a hell of a story.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You said there was a user submitted one on Reddit.
Yes, I do have a user submitted on Reddit. Do you want to go ahead and read yours while I pull that up?
Yeah. I'll tell mine. I was working in Winchester, a company in Winchester, Virginia, and we had apartment complexes all over the place. I did a lot of commercial, a lot of apartment complexes, and I did this place on rotation. I'd do 3 buildings, a service, and like 5 call-ins. Well, the building right across from the office, the leasing office, if you walk in, it's like a split foyer. You go down the steps, door to the left, was this woman that never let anybody in for anything. She had like tape on the bottom of the door as like kind of like a makeshift door sweep with duct tape, and you could knock on the door and you could hear her in there, and the only thing you would hear is that she'd actually put the chain on the door or something when you'd knock because she wouldn't want to let anybody in. Well, I happened to be on the property on the other side of the complex, and one of the maintenance guys was walking around with me, letting me in, and I was just doing my regular rotation. And he got a call on the radio, and they go, "Hey, she's gone." And he's like, "What? Who's gone?" They're like, "Oh, she's gone. The woman that doesn't let anybody in. We can get it, get the pest control guy in there and get something done because that place we haven't seen that place for forever." So we went across the complex down to the apartment. He opened the door and it smelled like rotting meat. And he started gagging, went back up the steps. And as he was exiting the building, said, "Man, I'll wait for you across the street." So I walked in and it smelled like, if you have, if you like old chicken or something in your trash can, old meat that's just kind of going bad in your trash, it kind of smelled like that. And I was still announcing myself as I walked in, as I do everywhere, even if I know someone's not there, even if it's an empty apartment, I'll still announce myself. I don't want some bum sleeping in the back and try to attack me if I'm not announcing myself and just walk in on them. So, or, they could have kids or whatever. So I still announced. And I went into the kitchen. Kitchen was normal, not messy. I kind of I had my B&G in my hand. I had a bait gun on my hip. I had glue boards in my back pocket, and I had my B&G, the tank in my left hand, the wand in my right. So I took the tip of the wand and pushed the lid down on the trash can with those little boundlet slids where you can like push on one side. So I pushed down, and the trash was almost empty, no smell coming from it. And I'm thinking, where the hell is that smell coming from?
Yeah, you're like, what in the world?
Oh, I walk back out of the kitchen and I go down the hallway, and to my right is the bathroom, and there's a door ahead of me and a door to the left of me. So I pop open the door. I think, maybe someone took an epic dump or something, and I push the door open because it was partly cracked open. So I kind of pushed it with the tip of my B&G. No, normal, clean, no problem, nothing unusual. Lady had a whole bunch of toilet paper. That was about it. Opened the door to my.
She's getting ready for
apparently. This was like, God, 7 years ago. But and opened the door to my left. It was a study. Had a laptop, other stuff in it, and a little cot. The cot looked like it had been used. So still couldn't figure out where the smell was coming from. And I opened the door, which is the master bedroom of the 2-bedroom apartment. And did you ever see the movie Seven, where the guy had hung all those little tree air fresheners all over the room to cover up the smell of the dead body?
No, but I can imagine.
Yeah, well, it was dark. The shades were drawn, and I've always been of the habit that where your B&G wand goes out and then kind of curves down towards the tip. I'll use that little bump in the curve to hit the light switch.
Oh yeah, you never want to touch anything.
No. And I hit the light switch, and I looked, and there were stick-ups, the little round disc stick-ups all over the place. And I hadn't even seen what I'm going to tell you. And there were flowers in vases all over. And as I looked through the room, I kind of jumped back because there's someone in the bed. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And
or they under the covers, up, just sitting on the
bed. Under the covers, up to the top of their chest, below their collarbone. Like right across at the top of the shoulders were visible, and then the neck up and the head. And it was an older woman. And the longer I looked at her, you could see how her cheeks were sunken in, and her lips were receding a little bit, and her teeth were kind of showing, and it was obvious she was dead. Now, the woman who rented the apartment was from Africa, and her mother was African as well. And her skin was pallid, considering her normal living skin tone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ma'am, hello? And I was like, oh.
Start taking your BNG1, knock her on the head. Hello, anybody home?
I did holler at her, like, hey! And just to see if she'd jump or something. And no, she was clearly dead. And see, I used to be an EMT a long, long time ago. And when I was an EMT, in 1 week, I had a guy in a mobile home in the middle of July with no air conditioning blow his head off with a shotgun. I mean,
oh my God, where were you at?
In Fredericksburg, Virginia.
Oh,
and I mean, he was sitting on the floor, and he put that thing under his chin, so his body was still sitting against the wall, and there was like this V of gore from where his shoulders were up on the wall, which was what was left of his head. And then the same
or some Buddy's water.
Yeah. And then the same week, there's this old guy that weren't sure if he fell asleep or had a heart attack while he was driving in a big old LTD. He ran off the road and hit a tree, and the hood shot up through the windshield and took his head off.
Holy shit.
So I've seen dead bodies before, and I'm like, God damn. I'm just, man.
You're like, I thought I was away from this.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm not going to get the rest of my stops done today now.
Yeah, you're like, I want to go home. I need a drink.
I had 3 more houses and 1 more apartment complex. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So I walked back. I had latex gloves on, but I pulled the door shut, but not all the way shut. I got out right out in front of the building, and I called because I didn't want to leave that place open and someone go in there while I was away from it. So I called, and I'm like, look, you can see me. I'm standing around out in front. I need you to come over here. They're like, what? I say, I just need you to come over here. So the lady, the leasing agent, came across the walk, and I said, prepare yourself. She's like, what? She goes, is it disgusting? I said, kinda. And I showed her. She freaked out, screamed and ran, and she called the cops. So they sent the morgue van, they sent an ambulance, and they sent a police officer. And I just told them exactly what I did. I didn't touch nothing except for with my gloves on. I touched the bedroom door, and I touched the door to get into the building. Other than that, I only used my B&G to touch stuff. But apparently what happened is this lady, when she came home with all the cops there, her mother passed away in her apartment, and she was devoutly religious and felt that if she prayed over her mother enough, that God would bring her mother back. Which was why she left her mother in her bed, and she was sleeping in a cot in the office room because she thought that if she prayed enough and she was a good enough Christian, that God would bring her mother back. So she never reported her mother's death or anything, and just kept her there in the apartment. And this woman, judging by the way she looked, she'd been there for a little bit. And I guess the woman was like putting moisturizer and stuff on her skin, trying to preserve her until she came back. But yeah, that was a little creepy.
You don't want mama coming back. Like, mama comes back and like, what's wrong with my skin? Like, I guess that's her logic behind
I told you I was going to lose all that weight.
Yeah. bed feels kind of wet now. Like,
why's my ass purple?
yeah.
Oh man, so that's my dead body story. All right, yeah, and I got another story. It's kind of more startling and creepy as opposed to morbid. But I was doing an apartment complex, kind of a Section 8 apartment complex down near Fort Meade in Maryland, which is just outside of D.C. And the company I worked for had dark blue, like polo shirts, dark blue slacks. I had the big long black Maglite on my right hip in that little leather holster thing with the ring, and then on my left hip I had a bait gun, like the old Max Force bait guns in the black Velcro holster. And we were going from unit to unit doing a roach clean out, as we were prone to do a lot of in Section 8 housing, and knocked on the door, and you could see the peephole darken like someone was looking through it, and then backed off. And the door opened, and there's a gun in my face. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm here for your bugs, not for you. And I was like pointing to my shirt that had the company name on it. He's like, oh, man, I'm sorry. So after almost getting shot, I went to the next building over. And the kind of sad, creepy thing is this woman answered the door, and she could hardly get around, and her breathing was labored, and she was breathing almost like she had a lung full of fluid, which it turns out later she did. Having been an EMT, I immediately noticed it as renal failure. Her kidneys were failing, and her ankles were really swollen up. It almost seemed like you could take a pin and prick her, and she'd spring a leak. That she had that much fluid in her.
Yeah.
I mean, her skin was really taut and tight. And I felt, it was creepy because when I went to report it to the office and they called 911, the medics came in and they talked to me about what I saw. I explained to them what I used to do. And they're like, oh yeah, with the condition she's in, if she would have stayed home today, she would have died. So.
Really? Well, it's good that she did that.
And the last thing that was kind of creepy to me is I did this service for a guy that lived with his mom. Gentleman was a fireman. Gentleman lived an alternative lifestyle. He was gay. That's cool. No problem. Nice guy. Really nice guy. He must have liked my butt though, because he's like, I've got some rodent baiters up in the attic. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, where's the attic access? And it was in the hallway, this little cottage house, little single level house with a basement. And I pulled the attic steps down and unfolded them. And I got my first foot on the rung with my other foot still on the carpeted floor. And I feel a hand on my ass. He goes, do you need help getting up the steps? I mean, no, I don't. And I kind of swatted his hand on. I'm good. I'm fine. If I fall, just let me fall. That's fine. So, but yeah, don't help me in any way. No mouth to mouth. So I mean, nice guy. Just don't touch my butt. No. I've got enough fun stories about women and things like that, like the woman who was naked with the coke and the weed on the table. But no, don't touch my butt. That was kind of creepy to me. So that's my creepy story.
He was just trying to give you some support.
Sure. He's trying to support something.
I mean, he might have been doing some little more firefighting. Maybe he could have been your sugar daddy.
He was looking to grab a hose is what he was looking to do. And I wasn't feeling it. But, you love who you love. And I'm happy for him if he finds love that way. But that's not my bag, baby. So, yeah, no. But no, that's what I got. That's my creepy and morbid stuff.
Okay. Well, actually, I do have a little bit to add of my story. So I was talking to some coworkers about that same apartment complex. Apartment complex was notorious for us. We don't do it anymore. Thank God.
Right.
Hated the place. But we had I had talked to another tech who had trained me on that route, and he's like, "Hang on, what unit was it?" And I told him. He's like, "Oh, that's the same one we found a dead cat in."
What?
And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, we were doing, we were spraying, and we walked into that unit, and there was a smell, and there's a cat laying there, cat wasn't moving. And they told the guy, he's like, oh yeah, it's been dead or something like that. But it was the same guy that I ended up finding dead later. So not only did we find a dead person in that unit, we also found a dead
That's
cat.
just a bad luck apartment. Shit just keeps dying.
Yeah, no, that apartment complex. Yeah, no. Okay, so we do have a user
Nice.
submitted story. This episode looks like it's going to go a little longer, but that's okay. We'll let it go as long as it needs to. So this is somebody from Reddit we had submitted on here. I'm not going to mention their Reddit name because they didn't give me permission to. They might have been okay with it, but
Sure,
kind of skimmed it. So it's my first time reading it, so we'll see what it says. Well, this was a new service in a very rural area, a very old home in southeastern Alabama. Customer complained of a dead animal smell and flies, and of course the usual roaches and ants. They had not purchased termite protection with the pest service, so I figured as well and look underneath in case I could get a small commission as well as a new termite contract as well. So I put on my crawl space suit and bub camp. What's the bug camp? I've not heard of that. Knee pads. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's something they do in Alabama. I don't really know. Mud boots and a headlamp and squeeze into about a 2-foot high crawl space door. It was pretty standard at first. Cobwebs, old decaying wood held up by cinder blocks, a few camel crickets trying to give me a heart attack, and a slight leak in a pipe that left a very pungent muddle of sewage. Ugh. Yum. There was no moisture barrier either, so I was pretty dirty and overwhelmed by various odors.
That mud.
Anyway, about halfway through... Yeah, I hate units like that. Like, any crawl spaces like that, I'm just like, I can put some Niban under
That's
there
what Tyvek suits are good for, because regular coveralls are just going to get soaked through your pants. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't want to deal with that crap. So about halfway through, there was a cinder block while closing off the crawl space, with the exception of an unnecessarily small space which had an iron piping through it. I was already tired and didn't really want to backtrack and have to enter the other side of the crawl space to continue my inspection. So I managed to yoke and move myself through the hole, and that's where I almost pooped myself a little. We've all been there for crawl spaces where you're like, all right, I'm just going to keep going because this sucks. Sure enough, my light exposed the half-decayed body of a cat.
Yum.
This was not uncommon, but always gross, especially if it hadn't been dead too long. He's saying this is an uncommon. Like, I've never found a dead cat.
That's a couple.
That is
more like dead skunks and possums.
I luckily, I haven't really found anything dead under the cross besides, like, of course, rats when I have bait stations near. Just around the other side of us. Okay, hang on. Oh, wrong part. Of course, I didn't immediately notice that the snake was dead because of my fight or flight instinct. So he also found a snake. And I started rapidly moving away from this wildlife crime scene. When I was closer to the exit, I collected myself and decided to shine the light back on the horror show. I finally realized the snake that looked like a brown snake was dead. After all, it dawned on me that the snake, a rat, and a cat had died within a few feet of each other around the same time. Now, I honestly have no idea what went down with these three, and I haven't imagined that it was some kind of epic battle occurring. I got out, chuckled, put some odor-eating granulars in the crawl space, told a customer what I had seen. He told me he had wondered where his cat had gone a few weeks back.
We know now.
I usually have the presence of mind to take a picture, but snakes in a crawl space tend to change my immediate priorities. So, yeah, that sounds like a Tom and Jerry, like, rated R version. He's
I can just see Samuel L. Jackson. I don't want no mother effing snakes in no mother effing crawl space.
Snakes, No, I don't blame you. I've not found one in a crawl space. I have popped open a few bait stations. Like, oh shit, okay. Hey, what's up, dude?
We can do a pretty big segment of one of these next podcasts just about snakes. Man, I have got stories for days about snakes. So
I've only got one summer under my belt, but I do have a few, and I know I'll get more living up here in
Oh
upstate
man,
South
doing tent
Carolina.
fumigations, you'd be surprised the snakes that come out of places after you fumigated them for a night. Wow. Oh my God.
Really?
Yeah, you don't think they're in there, but man, they're in there, and they come out when you start putting that Vicane in the house.
But
But no, man, that was a good show. I liked that story, man. That you had. You know, I kind of had like the bad taste in my mouth just thinking about it.
Yeah, no, I don't want to see a half decaying cat. Like, I mean, I really like cats, so I don't want to find one dead, but a half decayed one, I can imagine.
Yeah, if he's only half decayed, he's still funky.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, you got anything to add?
Well,
for this episode?
Again, like I said, we have a website that's in the process of being built. I have a friend who's a wood designer putting that together for us. We do have the Gmail, talesfromthecrawlspace@gmail.com. We'd love stories, ideas, critiques, anything. If you like the show, if you didn't like the show, if you think we could do something different, let us know, please. I mean, we want this show to be entertaining for you pest guys out there. So let us know what you want to hear. If you got any great stories, email us. Let us know. You never know. If it's a really cool story, maybe we'll bug you and see if we can get you on the show to talk about it yourself, because it's always better hearing it from the person that experienced it as opposed to secondhand information. Wouldn't you agree, Nick?
Oh yeah, no, it would be great to have another host on the show, especially if we don't have David back on here. We'll see where he's at. If we can figure out, where he's disappeared to, but having a guest host every once in a while.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Just, get different viewpoints from different people. And I'll tell you what, one thing I did want to bring up, because once we submitted the podcast on Anchor, which is where we make our podcasts at, we are now on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, are all the podcast servers that we're on. All you have to do is search for Tales from the Crawl Space. Again, that's Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Pocket Cast, and Radio Public. We will hopefully be on iTunes podcasts here soon. I know it's being shopped around to a few more. But yeah, aside from Anchor, you can find us on Anchor as well. But you have a lot of choices depending on what you use. Judging by the demographics of our last episode, most of our listeners were on Spotify, which doesn't surprise me because that's a pretty popular app for music and everything. So, but yeah, and we've got people from all over the world. We had someone from Malaysia, Canada, South America, all over listening. And I love it. I think it's great. And if you're out there overseas or in a different country and you got some pest control stories to tell us, believe me, I would love to hear from somebody in Australia, because I think them gigantic spiders and everything out there trying to kill you makes for some good pest control stories. I would love to hear from someone in a different country doing pest control. I'd like to hear how you do it and some stories you've come across too.
Oh yeah. And doesn't matter if you're new into pest control, old into pest control, you may be retired and did it for a number of years. We want your stories. And speaking about stories, our next week's episode, we're kind of theme it around crazy customers, because we have all had that customer that has screamed at you, or is just unhinged. It's just one of those customers that you're like, yeah, you're not quite all there, but we want to hear those stories. So please send them in. And if you would like to come on the podcast, please just tell us on the Tales from the Crawl Space at gmail.com, or from the Pest Control Humor Depot. If you just want to privately message me or Jack, please go ahead and do that. We would not mind.
And don't forget our Facebook page, facebook.com Crawl Space.
All right. Well, I think that's about everything.
Hey, everybody, thanks for listening, and we hope to have you back on our next episode. Thanks for supporting us, and we love doing this just as much as I think you guys loved hearing it.
All right. Well, I think that's all, and we will see you next week. We're going to kind of keep working on our times. The time of the week where we're going to have it posted every week is still a work in progress. But anyways, thank you for listening.
Take it easy.
And have a great night. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Tales from the Crawl Space podcast. You can find us on just about every single podcast outlet there is online. So be sure to subscribe, and we'll have a new episode next week. Don't forget, you can find us on Instagram at TFTC Podcast, on Twitter at Crawlspace Tales, and you can also find us on Facebook at the Pest Control Humor Depot. See you next week.